pulled Kelly in when I decided that I wanted to start a pod. We've known each other since we were 13 or 13, seventh grade. And I said, I knew she had teaching experience. I had teaching experience. And I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm visioning. And you need to quit your job and you're going to join me. And we're going to do this.
Welcome back with another episode of Making the Leap. We're so glad that we have you with us today. One of the I'm going to call it a privilege, that one of the privileges that we get to both have is following up with the people that we have talked to previously. When we first started, I don't think we had any idea that this was going to launch into 50 episodes, 100 episodes, as we get near 150 episodes. But way back when we were just starting out,
seedling
we had
episodes.
Yes, I like that, seedling. One of the first episodes that we had, or earlier episodes, was speaking with Joelle Fortin. At the time, it was just her talking about the pod/micro school, which we'll get into more, talking with her about how that came to be. And almost a year and a half later, we're now joined by Joelle Fortin again, along with Kelly Lyman, the two of them who started the school together. I was in awe watching it get off the ground. I was like frantically on my phone half the time, like, Kelly, I love what you're doing. I love what this is. Joelle, I love it. I love it. And I wanted to bring that to people and get to continue to bring more of it, because it's changed from that first episode, which was like number 33 back in December of 2022. It's not just 7 or 8 kids together. It's, I think, doubled, if I'm correct in those numbers. And so with that, Joelle and Kelly, thank you so much for taking your time to share with us, and hopefully, I know, be an encouragement to so many others out there.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Joelle, let's kind of reset the table for just a minute, Kelly, if you don't mind, because when we first talked to Joelle, I learned the term pod school for the first time. I didn't know what that meant.
And we still kind of talk about it, like, are we sure? Do we know?
And one of the things that I thought was important was, for people that are newer to this show or still don't really know what it means, there are differences. You were a public school teacher who slowly started to remove your kids from school and homeschooled them. That evolved into other kids in your community joining you in sort of what would be called a pod school, or a one-room schoolhouse is a way to think of it, maybe.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to today, where you've evolved and grown and brought in Kelly now, and there's a whole new dynamic to it. So have I reset that about right? And if there's something I missed, please fill it in.
No, that's correct. I have 5 kids. And at the time when I started this, I had pulled my kids out of public school, started as a homeschooler just to my own children, and then pulled Kelly in when I decided that I wanted to start a pod. We've known each other since we were 13 or 13, seventh grade. And I said, I knew she had teaching experience. I had teaching experience. And I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm visioning. And you need to quit your job and you're going to join me and we're going to do this.
So I'm going to,
and she did it.
Well, I'm going to jump right on that, because I want to ask, Kelly, were you thrilled at that opportunity she was offering you, or were you kind of hesitant about it?
A little bit of both. Yeah. I was hesitant, because I have 4 children and I had a job, and but it had been on my radar, especially for my 3rd son, and then my daughter who is under him. I was thinking about homeschooling, and then she came to me and basically, we're going to do this, and I tend to just go, okay, please let me talk to Brian first.
So can I talk to you about the difference, just because I like to make the distinctions in the conversation. We throw around terms often, and people that are looking in and considering, I know I want to take my child from public school. I understand what homeschooling is, but all the different options in between, things like micro school or pod school. Can you ladies define those terms for us succinctly so people understand the difference?
So I think we're still learning as well, actually. Yeah. So from what we're learning, a micro school would be between like 15 to 50 kids, seems to be the range. A pod is smaller than that. So we kind of just started calling it a pod because we're in what looks like a one-room schoolhouse. It's an old apartment that's attached to my parents' house on an acre of land. So we have two rooms that were once a bedroom and a living room that we use as 2 classrooms, and then we have a full kitchen and a bathroom. and like a little hallway area with extra seating. But so really it would be pod as the smallest, micro school after that. And that's when, after you go past that, you're into like charter schools or public schools.
So you're technically now at this point, then you're like bridging into that micro school category, so to speak, for people, because you've got more than just that initial. I remember you specifically saying you were only taking as many kids as your van could hold. Like that was my favorite.
We're sticking to that.
Yes, and that's I was like, oh, does she get another car? Like, what's happening here? How did she do that?
So I still have a 12-passenger van, which we bought. I begged my husband for when we started Pod. I was like, I need to be able to take them places. I wanted to make sure that the vision of how we were doing things stuck with what we wanted for our own children. Kelly and I align a lot with our motherhood and our faith and what we believe in. So that was like an easy blend already to have. And we just wanted to make sure that we had the same like families. So I didn't want to have any more than 12. Kelly does not like driving. She's the person who will park when you're like, why is that car all the way in the back and the store's like a mile that way? That's Kelly. So I had to be able to do the driving. And then this year we have several seniors that drive themselves. So we could take some more on and fill their spots in the van.
So that's
funny.
This is really interesting. You guys have older kids. Some are you, when you say driving, you're not picking them up. Are parents dropping them off with you guys? Is that what you
our seniors have their own cars, so they park outside and drive themselves to school.
And the younger ones?
Are brought
they get
by
dropped off by parents.
Okay.
So this is, again, the distinction is co-ops for homeschoolers. That's where homeschoolers may get together for a certain period of time in a day of a week. Whereas with you guys, this is 4 out of 5 days a week these kids are with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No.
Well, just, and then in that day, in those 4 days, what might a student's day look like, a curriculum look like? And then what about that 5th day when they're not with you?
So we have a wide range of students. Our youngest are 5th graders all the way up through seniors in high school. And we cover all subject areas in here. So we do science, history, math, language arts, regular art class. We bring in a couple other things as well. And we've hired out. So we have a new math teacher starting this year. We had the same one the last 2. And we hired another one now so we can have somebody come in even more than we have in the previous years for math, because it gets more complicated, the math skills, as they get into high school. And really it's just a constant rotation. So we always start with language arts and we start with math. So the first 2 hours of the day are those 2 subjects. The math teacher takes them into one room, does math. They come out, they do independent work while we're doing language arts, and we pull. It's just constant teachers pulling. The curriculum that we choose is very well laid out for being independent. So, which really is a great skill that we start teaching them, the younger kids, and then by the time they're middle school and up, they get that main lesson and then they go do their independent work. But it's just constant moving, rotating. We do science and history together, whole group. And then we pool high school for extra sciences. So we've got chemistry and biology that we kind of flip. But it's just constant movement all day. And the kids just get used to that schedule and they go with it. If they have questions, we rotate around. We have, because of the different range of age, the younger ones ask the older ones if we're working with another student for help in something. And Wednesdays, if you want to talk about Wednesdays.
Yeah, Wednesdays, we really leave it up to the parents. Like, that's a great day for them to go on trips as a family. Some of our older kids have jobs, they volunteer. They always have work that they can be working on for us within Pod, but we really leave that open to let the parents kind of choose how they want their kid to spend the day, because it varies. You know, they all come from different families with different obligations.
We have a lot of athletes in here, so they're doing 2-a-day sports where they'll go in the morning, then they'll come to Pod, they'll go again in the afternoon. So Wednesday is kind of their day to do homeschool how they want it to look, because we wanted to keep that homeschool feel and make sure that the parents are also playing a role in their education and what they want them to be learning.
Can I clarify that all of these kids are learning the same, like when you say your math teacher comes in, is that math teacher teaching fifth graders all the way through seniors at the same time in the same room, or no?
So no, it's all differentiated and flipped around. So we actually do math through sixth grade, and then she'll pull for pre-algebra, she'll pull for algebra, she'll pull for geometry. So we have
scheduled
them do
throughout the day. That's scheduled throughout the day.
All in that first 2 hours. So she'll do like 40 minutes, and she has 3 different groups that she meets with.
And because it's self-directed, they can move, like she can move around because you're working to make it a little bit more self-directed than what it might look like in a traditional classroom.
Yeah. So if she were to have let's say she had the pre-algebra kids in that other room, they'd be doing pre-algebra while the geometry kids were waiting and the algebra 1 kids are waiting. They're doing independent work for her in the other room, and then she'll send that other group in to do independent and pull the geometry kids in. So she gets 40 minutes with all 3 of those groups, each group.
I think that's really important as we share these episodes with parents who are considering, different options for their kids, or teachers who are thinking, I need to get out. I talk with people and different teachers a lot who are really interested in starting something like this. And I think the methods that you're using, I love it because it isn't a one size fits all. For some people, they don't want that independent piece there, or they don't want it to be structured for 40 minutes here and then 50 minutes here. They don't like that. But I think that is something that we almost have to disabuse ourselves of a little bit as what we traditionally know, that it can look semi-traditional. It can also look unconventional because most of us didn't have math that way. We weren't learning geometry. I learned geometry as a sophomore. I learned pre-algebra as a freshman. That is something that I think is a real struggle for families. And I'm curious what your families coming in, how they handled that non-traditional look, if they were ready for it, if they were hesitant, if they just wanted out of where they were and they didn't care. And I'm assuming it ran the gamut, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we definitely had kind of all over the place. Really, the way we handle it is we meet with the families first. We go through an interview process, and then when we find the families that we think would be the best fit for open spaces that we have, we sit and really get to know what they want for their kids. We have kids in here that are looking at trades. We have kids that are going to be college bound. We have kids that don't want either of those things, that are going to travel or do missionary work. So it's kind of all over the place. And the cool thing about being so small is everything, the communication with parents, we just text any time of day, any day of the week. This is where they are. We think this would be beneficial. Or if the parents this is what they're interested in now, can we make sure that we're getting a little bit of this kind of math, like an SAT prep or whatever it may be. We are constantly meeting the kid where they are. And that was our big conversation piece with parents, was it's not one size fits all. It's going to be more real world. You're never going to be in a room where everyone is the same age, on the same level academically or in business or wherever you are in the real world beyond high school. So we really try to teach them all those skills starting young. You can do independent work here. When you have questions, go on to the next thing and we'll come back to you. So, and it's kind of neat to see how the parents, they're just so supportive of that. Yeah. I think because we're so upfront from the beginning, that they're not afraid to ask us questions, and we're brutally honest too. So we just tell like it is, and it's a good relationship. Like, outside of pod, the moms have moms night where we all get together with the moms, and they have pool parties for the whole pod. It becomes like a family.
Yeah, Kelly, that's an interesting question. These kids, I think traditionally we've come up to believe the seniors are with the seniors, the juniors are with the juniors, the fifth graders are with the fifth graders. These kids are interspersed in many different ages, and it's working. Like, they don't, like a junior or a senior doesn't mind hanging out with a sixth grader.
No, not at all. I mean, every once in a while, of course, because at this point, especially the kids who we've had for several years now, they really are more like cousins. But even during free time, they all hang out, they go outside and, they play together, and they help each other out a lot. It's really cool to see, actually. We
had a system in place, too, that actually Vanguard had created a homeschool program where we were able to like assign almost like real world business jobs each kid. Like, do you want to be a tutor? Do you want to be the dishwasher? And you earn a certain income, and then you can see where you are at the end of the month, and you have to, this is what your rent was. This is what this was. You tutored this fifth grader in math for 40 minutes, so you earned X amount of dollars. So we bring it that way in too. So it's almost like real world where they're earning money, but figuring that out while helping some of the younger kids.
No, I'm sorry. You said Vanguard, as in the large investment company Vanguard. They're embracing homeschooling. Is that what you just said?
Yes. So we have a mom of one of our students who's going to be a senior. She works for Vanguard, and they were noticing that these kids that are new hires, fresh out of high school, college, whichever level they were on, didn't have real world math experiences. So they started putting their minds together, and they came up with an entire math real world curriculum that they were putting out there free for people to use, so that these kids, when they get hired, come in and they know more real world math and not just, this is geometry, this is algebra 2. Like, they know how to balance checkbooks and take care of bank accounts.
Could I jump in on that again? Because this is really intriguing. Didn't know this. Does that indicate to you that Vanguard's a massive company? I mean, that's a huge company. Is that an acknowledgement of what's going on culturally, what you've just shared? Are they acknowledging that there are people that are learning and parents that are teaching in different ways out there than the traditional K through 12 public school?
100%.
Yes.
And they have to be acknowledging that schools are failing in some of these areas.
Yeah, I don't know that they'd say it that way,
correct,
but I mean, like that's a kind of, I don't know of another company that's doing that.
Right.
Maybe there are, and I've not heard it. I mean, are they very public about that?
We only knew because of the student's mom who works for them. And she was like, I can set this up. She came in, she spoke to the kids about how it was going to work. They keep a log of their jobs. And so we wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have gone out to look for something like that. Now, we have looked for real world math, and we've purchased real world math programs. And we've always done that as a side, like extra math credit for the kids, because when you look at those algebra, geometry, the calculus, we start looking at it, they don't have just the everyday math that you see in the world and need to know to be able to budget and know what you're doing with your money. And so we've always looked, and then this mom was like, oh, I work for Vanguard, and they have this, do you want it? And we were like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's actually kind of my next question. So, because I still think we're kind of in a newish phase with this type of model. I think homeschooling, obviously, you talk to people, they've been doing it for years and years and years for a lot of them. Some of them it's brand new, but the idea of homeschooling has been around forever. This one-room schoolhouse, I think a long time ago existed, phased out, and now we're coming back to it with a lot of different families. Where are you finding other resources? I think it's amazing that Vanguard is doing something like that, but I'm also curious how you're learning. Nobody can go into these things without resources. You have a background in teaching, both of you, but not in the logistics necessarily of running a school. And so I'm curious how and who you're partnering with, how you're gaining some of that information to be as successful as I think you guys are.
I think we're always researching. We're always studying. We're listening to podcasts. We're looking at books. There are so many homeschool communities on social media.
Yeah, I was going to say Facebook specifically. There are so many different homeschool groups, I guess. There's like for your state, for the county that you live in. So we're in several of those together.
All of them.
Yeah.
for all ages, because some of them are like, this is elementary homeschool, this is high school homeschool, this is secular homeschool, this is Christian homeschool. So we're in all of them. And we're not necessarily the ones typing and putting posts up, but you go in those search buttons, and even if we're looking for a curriculum that we want to be more faith-based, we can go into these searches on these pages that they've created, and we're learning a ton from that.
So this is, I know we talked about this, almost 2 years ago, this December when we first talked about this, Joelle, but I'll ask it again because this is something people are always interested in, the money. we still hear, and we're always working to kind of introduce parents and people that are thinking about leaving public school and getting into alternative education. The first thought is, well, what's this going to cost me? And oftentimes, traditional private school or Christian schools that are well established are often viewed as outside of affordability ranges for a lot of people. I remember you telling us that you could do it at a much more affordable level, but now you've brought in people like Kelly, and you're bringing in math teachers, so you got to pay them something. And again, I don't mean to be personal, but
and you need a salary.
You need money. I mean, you're not doing it for free, but what does that look like, and what should people expect to pay to do something like this with you?
So we're learning this as we go as well. So we've been invited to several different dinners of micro school starters over the last year and a half, and hearing the different ways. You'd be amazed. Some of them that have started aren't paying themselves yet, or only have enough to pay a certain amount of teachers. So the way we do it, we do not consider ourselves really like a school. We can't label ourselves as a school because we just aren't one. So we don't have this tuition that would be a private school tuition. We consider ourselves tutors. So it would be Kelly is more history, I am more science. We have the math tutor, and then together we go through language arts. So we charge as we would a tutor fee, but it's not as much because we're with them every day. So, and we don't provide, a room of computers for people like a private school would, or sports like a private school would. So it's more or less what you would pay to have a private tutor that would come to your home, or you go to that person and you charge whatever that tutor. And tutors range. I mean, I know tutors that charge $50 an hour. I know some that charge $100 an hour. And we aren't charging by the hour either. We just came up with a lump sum for the month. It was a random number, and it was a way that we could divide it among the tutors, really, is how we do it.
So you all have one agreed upon cost that you split amongst you guys. And do you cap your enrollment?
Yeah. I mean, we take it year by year. I mean, our first year we started, I don't even remember how many students now.
I think we had like 7.
Yeah.
And then this year we said we were not going to go above 15. We have 15.
Right.
And then I have one other that I do outside of pod. So 16 when we count that student as well. But I think, what we're looking at now, which is getting kind of crazy, is space. If we are going to consider ourselves going more into a micro school, we are getting a lot of, we have some conversations going with people about different space options moving forward if we wanted to grow. So we have had people reach out regarding that we're considering if we're ready to do that or not. We're finding that the biggest world that falls into are the athletes, because the public schools are not, they're not receptive of students coming in, 30, 40 minutes late every day because they've done like a morning session at the gym or on the hockey rink or things like that. So in Westchester, which is near us, they have an actual hockey school for kids that want to do like 2-a-day practices. And so we've been approached by athletes and things like that as far as having a different space and looking at something bigger so that these kids can do 2-a-days as well as getting their education and having a bigger space to do it.
This is a bridge. This model is effectively a bridge between an established Christian school and homeschooling. Is that about right? You're sort of in between those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it'll just depend on what we end up wanting to do. We really just base everything on what what we feel is best for our own kids, our families. We share that with the families we have. And I know for a fact I never want to get to the size where we can't take the kids and go do school outside. We are huge on being outside. We bring clipboards and we'll go sit along the Brandywine River and be out there for, 2 hours of doing work. So it's kind of a hard balance, and it can seem like appealing, like, oh, we could really, do we want to get bigger? Do we not want to get bigger? But in the same breath, there's something so special about the small, intimate piece of it. So we're torn on what the future will look like.
Do you have a faith? I don't want to say faith. Do you have a statement of faith, or do you have something that in school, we've talked with multiple people across the gamut on this. So I'm just curious, where parents have to sign they agree with certain beliefs or with a certain way of things that you're going to be doing, or I'm referring specifically to if you guys are a faith-based place, a faith-based school, are your parents on board with that 100%? Do you require things from them? I'm just curious what that looks like, since I know you've got people from all different backgrounds.
So we're not a Christian school or pod, but we do talk about our faith, and we let parents know very upfront that we are conservative. We have conservative Christian viewpoints. So we don't really teach out of the Bible, but the curriculum that we use is a Christian worldview. And then on Fridays, we do try to, not every Friday, but we do bring in, try to bring in the Bible a little bit with like Answers in Genesis we did. Christmas time, we always talk about the Christmas story. Easter, we talk about, the crucifixion and the resurrection and stuff like that. But it's not like an everyday thing. But Joelle and I are also very, very upfront with our beliefs. If the conversation lends itself that way, we talk about going to church or praying or, whatever is happening. And all of our families know that. And
we put it out there right away.
Yeah.
We really do have a pretty set in stone interview process when we meet families, so that we can get that feeling of whether or not we think it would be a good blend or mix. And we've had difficult situations where we thought it was a good blend, and we had to, have kids lose their positions here for the one thing, basically because we won't waver in our faith or where we stand. So we just want to make sure the parents, like I said, we're open books. They know that right from the beginning. This is our heart. This is where we teach from. The curriculum we choose has scripture throughout it. And even in the math program, there's pieces of scripture throughout. So we lay it all out there right from the beginning. And we even have families in here that aren't strong in faith, but have become stronger in faith since being in pod. And the pastor at our church donated Bibles for the Friday studies we do. So it's become more of a conversation piece. And we've seen some big changes in some kids that wasn't really part of their world before pod.
That's pretty cool. Is there a common thread in these families that are with you as to why they're not in public school? Or are they all different stories?
They're conservative.
So the answer is yes, then there is a thread going on.
Well, I remember you specifically told us in episode 33, well long ago, Joelle, you told us about your oldest having trouble, disruptive kids, and you were kind of dismissive of that. Well, just focus, pay attention, ignore them. And we were talking about kind of ignoring our kids' plea to get out. So beyond our politics or even our faith as parents, when our kids are struggling, how many of these kids were battling in traditional school and needed something else?
Yeah, you really hear it when you hear them talk in here in their free time or lunchtime. You'll hear conversations, well, when I was in school, it was this, or when I was in school, it was this. And we really try to make it a point. Our day is only a 5-hour day. And we are go, go, go that entire 5 hours. We don't have a 45-minute period of, what do they call them? Study halls when we were in high school or things like that. And we just really focus on keeping the noise of the outside world from coming in our front door. You're here to learn. You're here to grow. And a lot of that other stuff that's being tossed around and thrown in those classrooms, it's just stuff that you mentally are not ready or capable of handling yet. And we just really work at keeping it out. Sometimes it'll come up, different conversations, questions, experiences they've had. We always talk about it. That's when we usually go back to our biblical point of view. We always say as examples, Kelly and I are always like, we always test what we're saying to scripture. So that's always a great way to go if you're questioning something. But, anything you wanted to?
No, that's pretty much it. Yeah. And,
I think that's a big deal.
Noise, it really is. And when it does come in, we totally allow the conversation because I think it's healthy because they do have questions. It's their world. They're not always in here. They have jobs and sports and they're seeing everything. They still have friends who go to the public school. So
some of them are doing sports at their school still. So they're in here for their learning, but they're, playing baseball or softball for their local middle school team or high school team. And we encourage all of that. We just try to make it very clear to them, like, we want to learn and we want you to love learning, and we don't want you to have to worry about anything else but what's going to help you grow.
Yeah. Are you hearing from those kids, particularly those that are maybe, mingling on public school sports teams? Is this becoming more normal? I guess whether it's a private Christian school that's well established or a new one like we were looking at for our daughter, or your guys' pod school, are you finding that this is becoming more normal, or are kids still aware that they're abnormal in that they're not attending the big public school with hundreds or thousands of other kids? Is this becoming more normal, if you want? And I hate using that word, but you know what I mean, culturally.
Mainstream,
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I think it's becoming more normal. I think we still have kids that have some of the situations where, kids are, oh, you're homeschool. Is that real school? That doesn't sound like real school. And then, we've just actually really encouraged them over this past year, because we are starting to get more and more. We had a ton of middle schoolers last year and this year, and just saying, you need to stand strong in what you're learning, and, ask them, what are you learning in school? Share with them what you're learning. And then we're finding that they're coming back and saying, well, so my friend so-and-so wants to be in pod because it could be something as evil. You're done at 1:30 and you get to the field a half an hour before I do. And I'm trying to get changed in the locker room and don't have time. Like, we've heard all the stories across the board.
Yeah. And I think too, what helps is once they understand, like their friends understand, they're not just sitting at their kitchen table with their mom. They're with 16, 15 other kids. So I think that helps. And then their friends are like, oh, okay. And, so I think that helps when their friends really understand what it is that they're doing, and how they're learning, or at least what their learning environment is. I know, at least for my youngest, who is going to be in 7th grade, she's a gymnast, and she always had girls at the gym kind of make fun of her for being homeschooled. And I'd say, well, did you tell them exactly what it is that you're doing? Like, it's not just you and I in our kitchen. And so she finally did. And now all the girls want to come.
That was another question I had. Are you finding amongst adults, people are now looking in on this and they're hearing about it and they're saying, what are you doing there? I want a piece of that. Let me in on that thing. Are you becoming evangelical accidentally or purposely? Do you talk about it much publicly?
It's pretty wild. We actually, this year we knew we wanted to take a couple more kids on. I think I pushed more than Kelly. Like, we were both, Kelly's like, wait, how many are we taking? So, but I put one post out there saying that we had some openings. We were going to do interviews. We had 47 families within the first 3 days ask for interviews.
Gosh.
And that was wild to us. And I would not have put that post up when I did, because I wasn't ready for that kind of outpouring, because we were also finishing up the school year last year, and I was like, I should have waited a week. This is wild. I don't.
So you meet with all 47? Did you meet with 47 families?
No, because we always we send out an initial email to them, and we tell them exactly where we are, conservative Christian, and that always has several that will then
let me jump in on that. This is what now, 47 families reach out and say, oh, I like what you're doing. Then you stipulate you're conservatives and Christians, and a lot of them bail. What are they coming to then? If they don't like that you're conservative and Christian,
and why are they wanting to leave?
What are they leaving? What do they think? What are they thinking?
We don't know. Do you know?
No. I mean,
I think there's a lot of freedom with it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of freedom. I know I have friends that, people I know in my life who aren't necessarily Christian. And they're even tired of all the outside noise. Like, they just want their kids to learn reading, writing, math, science, social studies. Like, even though they're not a person of faith, they don't necessarily want everything either. So I think some of the families are like that as well.
The hours seem like we get a lot of feedback on how they appreciate the hours. We're not up and out at 6 a.m. Right. We don't start till 8:30. And like I said, I think the ending at 1:30 is huge, because so many people have their kids in extracurricular activities and one huge feedback that we've gotten every year, because we always do like a survey for parents at the end of the year just to get some input. And it is always that they are thankful it ends at 1:30. It gives them an extra hour every day to get their kids situated before they're off to their next activity that night. And like I said, the freedom, like when our high school girls are talking to their friends, it's very different. Oh, you sat in school all day. We did school at a local cafe, or we did school outside, or we were learning about the ocean, so we went to the beach today, and like that kind of stuff. And the kids are like, what? You went where? Like, because some of our schools in our area have even taken away field trips from elementary level kids.
Oh my gosh.
So I think too, like we had one student who he has extended family who lives in Ireland. So they would up and go to Ireland. We were like, see ya, have fun. Like,
you don't need to give us a note. We're not a public school.
Like, stay for the whole month if you want. Like, just come back with that delicious Irish chocolate that you do every year. Show us some pictures and we're all good. We're like, can we go with you, please?
So there is a need. We live we're in a space where we talk about not conservative. Christian education. We exist. This podcast exists. The Herzog Foundation focuses on Christian education.
But this is really.
But what you're saying is something that we don't really consider here, and that is that there are people that don't really identify as Christians, but they too want to flee kind of the madness of what they see going on.
And probably the insanity
school.
of the scheduling. I hear a lot of that too in what you're saying, that the noise is huge, but the scheduling, the exhaustion, the let's cram everything down a kindergartner's throat rather than wait till first grade or second grade. I'm guessing whether you fall on one side of the aisle or not, many parents have a brain in their head to use to know that a lot of that is not okay.
Well, and as Rush Limbaugh used to say, even if people don't realize it, they lead their lives as conservatives anyway, right, ladies?
I have a lot of friends. I say that too.
You may not call yourself conservative, but when you're talking about your own family under your own roof, you're leading your life as a conservative anyhow. I think is kind of true, don't you? Yeah. Well, this is enlightening. This has been really enlightening.
It's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys doing this today. I do think one of my, my own personal goal is to really provide a space where people can come use this as a resource, but more of a stepping stone to just say, I can do this. I can have this background in teaching, maybe never having taught, or I haven't taught at all, or I have 3 kids, or I have 5 kids, but they can do things. It doesn't have to look exactly the same way Joelle and Kelly's looks, but we can do it. And I think that's really what I want people to take from this. I can move my kids into a pod like this, or I can start
my own
pod like this.
And how about that? Parting advice, ladies, either of you, both of you. Somebody's got this on their heart. I'm a school teacher, and I think I'd like to do what they're doing. You would say what? Like, what do you need to know first?
Just do it.
I love it. Nike really needs to just give you guys credit.
The best way you learn is by jumping all in and not questioning yourself. I did pray over it for a year, just to make sure it was something that was coming from the Lord. That's just my own personal way of handling it. But I don't really let fear or anything even close to that get in the way. I feel like no parent knows, or nobody knows their child like their parent does. So if you want to teach your own kids, they're going to learn the most from you because you've been with them from day one. I could sit here now and not tell you anything that I remember very much from high school. But I feel like I am even almost in some levels relearning everything now in a more exciting way. You don't have to have the degree, the fancy paper. You just need to, know what your gut instinct. I think I had said this near the last time we spoke, but I feel like your conscience is God's megaphone. And if it's really tugging and saying, this is what I think I need to do or want to do it. If it doesn't work, you could always go back, but you'll never know if you don't try.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, nothing is set in stone. You give it a try, and if it doesn't work, you pivot, and you go in a different direction. And if that doesn't work, you pivot again. It's
life.
It's life. So you have to be flexible, and you just kind of have to go with it. And like Joelle said, I think parents don't give themselves enough credit for what they are able to teach their child. And having a good support system too, and friends, and just don't take it too seriously. It's a serious thing, but have fun with it.
And we're in no means like we don't run this perfectly. Like we have days where we're like, oh, that was so good. And then we have days where we look each other after somebody in class said something, we're like, we'll talk about that after school. Yeah.
Like I
one
think
day
that's
at a time.
big.
Yeah.
Right. One day at a time. I think that's what's important. And I hope, I appreciate what you guys have brought to the table today. I am grateful for your time as always. I know, it's the beginning of the school year for everybody, right? It's just crazy. So I think if there's a way or an interest from people who are listening, if they want to reach out to one of you, are they able to do so? Are you open to that? I know, again, we never want to just throw people's information out there, but is there a way for people to do that, or are you welcomed or open to that if they want to?
Yeah, you have our email address, I believe.
Yeah. Do you want to share it here or maybe share whatever, if there's a social media handle or an email address, and then we'll also include it in show notes for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have my Instagram page. I'm really only on Instagram, a little bit of Facebook for different things, but my Instagram is 5Forleys, FIVEFORLEYS, all one lowercase thing. And if you look at my highlights, I have highlights all the way back. They're all titled homeschool, and you can go in and see kind of how we do it. We try to do videos every 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and the parents love them. We put pictures to music, and it's a great way for the families to see what we're doing in here. They all sign waivers before we post it online that it's okay with them. We've had families make it their Friday night thing where they'll sit and look at all the pictures that we've put together for that amount of time. But that's a great way. And then do you want to give our email?
Yeah, our email is pgapodlife@gmail.com.
Perfect. We will include that. I think I've watched several of those videos. They are some of the most inspirational, encouraging videos I've seen. And if there's somebody listening that or watching that is interested, I would encourage you to do that. So Kelly and Joelle, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, sharing it with our audience. And with that, we would encourage anybody who's interested in this to go ahead and maybe pull up their former episode. That was episode number 33. Yep. And as always, go ahead and give us those 5-star reviews. Maybe leave us a written review. Download, subscribe wherever you listen and watch your podcast. And we will see you here next week. Making the Leap is a podcast presentation courtesy of the Herzog Foundation. We'd love your feedback by rating us and commenting on the show.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Making the Leap.